Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to show you how to do a professional brake job from start to finish, which is going to include changing the rotor, changing the brake pads, cleaning everything up and lubricating everything, and reassembly. Now, when you need to remove a rotor off a vehicle, there are some things that you need to be aware of and some special tools that you might need. So, if you look at the face of the rotor here, we don't have anything besides the lug nuts holding it on. Sometimes there's a screw here. It could be a Phillips head. It could be a Torx bit. If there's a screw there, you're going to have some type of an impact driver or a really good driver bit set to get those screws out, because they will strip, they'll break, they will snap. They always give trouble because of the immense amount of heat that's generated from the brake system and all the elements touching it. Most vehicles will need one of these. This is an impact screwdriver. You can find them almost anywhere, Harbor Freight. You're going to definitely need a brake piston compressor. This is a cheap one. You're going to need some grease. And then obviously the parts, the rotor, the pads, and the hardware. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you can break this bleeder valve open. We already did it here, but use a socket or a box end of the wrench. Don't use an open end. You'll end up stripping this here. Make sure you can open this. A little bit of fluid will dribble out, and then you know that's clear. If there's any mud or dirt inside that hole, use a small pick and brake clean to clean it out, because you're going to need to open this later when you compress this piston in, because you don't want to push fluid back up into the system. It can cause problems, and the fluid is generally very dirty down here in the caliper. After that, you want to go ahead and locate the slide pins for the caliper, which you'll see they'll attach. You'll have a set of big bolts that'll attach to the actual car spindle here. Oh, we have a nut down there because we were working earlier. What you want to do is you want to find the caliper guide pin bolts. They're attached to the caliper and then attached to the actual caliper mounting bracket, which attaches with the bigger bolts here to the car itself, the spindle. Go ahead and loosen these up. When you loosen it up, hang the caliper up out of the way. We have a small caliper hanger. You can use a coat hanger or anything, but just get that caliper hung up out of the way. Okay, we have the caliper hanging up here, and right there you got the caliper mounting bracket bolts. Leave them in there. We'll clean them later. You're going to come to the back here where the caliper mounting bracket is, and those are the big bolts you need to take out. They're extremely tight. This one and that one, these are over 100 foot-pounds. So a good tip that you can do, how we get these, usually get them out, is you'll just put a wrench on there and use a hammer and just beat it down, and eventually it'll just spin down. And do the bottom one the same way. Make sure you don't hit nothing, and also make sure you're going in the right direction. But you see here, there's one pad left behind. Still had some good meat on it, but we were doing a whole bunch of work under here, so we decided just to change it out while we're in there and just get rid of everything. Alright, we got the brake caliper mounting bracket off down there. It's the two bolts. Now the rotor assembly on this vehicle is able to come off. Again, if you have those little screws here, hit them with a little PB Blast or WD-40 and use an impact driver to get it out. We're going to take the lug nuts off and remove this rotor. Okay, we removed the rotor and brake assembly. It's there on the floor. We'll probably mic this rotor, end up cutting it and putting it on the shelf. But for right now, you need to focus back on this rust and everything here. And these areas, make sure everything is clean, because any rust or high spots or low spots on the face of this when the new rotor mates up will cause vibration and noise. You don't want that to happen. Alright, we hit the area with a wire brush, cleaned it off, hit it with some brake clean, as well as the brake caliper mounting bracket. We went ahead and buffed off the areas that the pads are going to be riding in. If you have some brake hardware that rides in those areas, usually they have two metal clips or whatever that sit in there. Go ahead and put them back in. This vehicle does not have any, doesn't require it. Then go ahead and take your rotor, set your rotor back on there, and put your lug nuts back on to hold the rotor up against the car. We got this pretty nice rotor back on here. The next thing you want to do is put the caliper mounting bracket back onto the spindle assembly. Alright, we got the caliper mounting bracket bolted up and torqued down. Again, these bolts are usually very tight. This was 111 foot-pounds for this model. And again, if you had some type of clips here, brake hardware, go ahead and put that back on. Always use new hardware. If you can't, make sure the old stuff is cleaned up really well. This does not require those type of clips. Also, you do not want to put any grease here because you don't want the grease sliding in and getting on the rotor. A lot of people make that mistake and grease these things up. Generally, those metal clips stay dry to allow the pad to slide in and out, and we'll show you. Alright, so you see how that pad is in there? It'll slide real easy with no grease. You don't want it to get hung up in there and get splattered in on the rotor and cause damage to the pad face and the rotor. So generally, you just want to go ahead and slide them in dry. Any type of brake grease is going to be done in the caliper slide pins here, or on the back pad surface area here between the pad and the caliper itself, the mounting points. So once you have all that set up, the very next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and crack this bleeder valve and go ahead and use that tool and compress this piston down while the brake fluid is squirting out so that we can catch it and get all the old brake fluid out of there while also making room for the newer, thicker pads. Okay, as you see there, we already started dripping, so we're going to start slowly turning. And we're turning that down and compressing this piston in. Okay, once you fully compress the caliper piston back down into its bore, go ahead and close off that bleeder valve and back this tool out and remove the old pad. Alright, with everything removed, you want to go ahead and clean off the surface here of the brake piston and the back surface areas where the pad is going to ride, and all those areas you want to clean off. Remove the slide pins, clean them off really good. If they're worn out, replace them, and then re-lubricate them and put them back in. And we're going to re-lubricate it with that moly grease that we showed you earlier. Alright, everything's lubricated. Again, put a little bit on the rubber seal there, a little bit on the face of the caliper piston, some on the back side of the pads, everything that touches, or back side of the contact areas that touch the pads. And again, your slide pins should be able to move very easily with one finger. You see, we just push those down to make room to go into the caliper mounting bracket now. We're going to go ahead and put the back plate or the back pad on there and go ahead and slide this caliper back on and mount it up. Alright, we got the caliper and brake pads, all the hardware back on, everything lubricated, everything torqued down to spec and cleaned up. The last thing now to do is go ahead and pump the brake pedal until it gets tight. That'll set the pads into the rotor, and then go take it for a quick, slow test drive. Make sure everything sounds good, feels good, and you're ready to go. Hope this helps you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.